Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source. Now here's your host, Alan Hinsey.
We're joined today by Governor John Baldacci for a retrospective look at his administration. Since first being elected to public office in 1978, Governor Baldacci has held positions on the Bangor City Council, the Maine State Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives. 8 years ago, he was elected as the state's 73rd governor. Welcome, Governor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Great. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to first of all say thank you for your service as governor, as a public servant. I mean that seriously, because I know that that's a hard job. The hours are long. It can be hard on families, and you don't get rich being governor. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your dedication to the citizens of Maine.
I appreciate that, and as my mother always reminded me, I ran for it. So thank you.
Right. Okay. Now that the buttering up part of the show is over, let's get right down to it. Thanks for being here. First of all, I want to start off with just to kind of set the context for where the economy is right now. In its November report, the Maine Consensus of Economic Forecasting Commission stated that the August year-to-year Economic Activity Index moved to positive territory for the first time since April of 2008. Personal income grew 2.6% in the first 2 quarters of 2010. Home prices in the South Portland, Biddeford metropolitan area were up 4% in the second quarter, and it's the second consecutive quarter of growth following 15 quarters where prices were flat or declined. So those are good signs, I think, in terms of kind of coming out of the recession. You've been quoted as saying that corporate earnings are driving the improvement in Maine. You've added that after shedding more than 30,000 jobs, companies in Maine are rebounding and profits are improving, especially for large multinational corporations. Okay, so that's kind of where we are. Clearly, we're making some movements out, and that's going the right direction. A question I want to start with is just about the recession in Maine. You know, with give us an insider's view of this. With all of the data at your disposal, the analytical tools, economists, when did you see the recession coming? What were the first big hints?
Well, I think first of all, thank you very much, Alan, and I really enjoyed the show.
Good.
So returning the compliments that you gave me, and certainly appreciate the focus on business, because I think that's what we've been about since I've been governor. It's that we couldn't raise taxes because we had the highest tax burden in the country, and we had to generate more job growth, more economic development, more income for Maine people. And as you and I both know, that's the best social service programs, a good paying job with benefits, and the best social service department isn't DHS, but it's the family. And those policies kind of underpin all that we've been trying to do. So we watched that very closely.
Yeah.
I think when we started to see things, it was when the oil prices spiked up to about $142 a barrel, and East Millinocket and Millinocket were jeopardized because Millinocket was burning oil to generate the electricity and steam, and that was the most expensive source, and at the same time paper revenues were declining. So that was kind of the canary in the cave. And then all of a sudden you saw the ripple impact of that in the housing market imploding and the credit markets imploding. But it started off with energy, which is why we're so driven to be energy independent. I think Maine is a good test model because we're so oil dependent, so imported energy dependent, that to improve our economy, improve our future, by getting to be less dependent will be in everybody's interest, especially our economy.
We're going to talk more about energy in a minute too, but about, do you think that the Obama administration and state government too, for that matter, did we do enough for stimulating to stimulate the economy, or did we do too much?
Well,
where do you land on that?
Well, I think when you look back, history will be the best judge.
Yep.
And I think when you look back, it was probably the worst time since the Great Depression. And I don't think that the President and his administration, and President Bush and his administration, did a very good job of really talking about the severity of what was happening.
Right.
When I studied the Roosevelt era, and I look back at his radio broadcasts and his communication with the public, it was much more clear, it was much simpler in explanation in terms of what we had gone through. That wasn't the same thing here. They did the TARP, they did the GM bailout, they did the Recovery Act, they did this and that, but there was no follow-through, there was no explanation in setting the table and telling the American public what's going on. So I think it was a lot worse than what we were probably led to believe.
Do you think health care at the federal administration, the Obama health care plan, was that a distraction?
I think that it compounded the lack of clarity with the economy. I think that it was important to do, but I don't think it was important to do at the time. I think that history will show that, you know, moving ahead in terms of quality, affordable health care is a good thing. But I think with all the things going on with the economy, I think a more central focus on that really is what the American public really was owed, because it was a lot worse. And my point is that what we're going through is like what our grandparents went through during the Depression. So we are stripping away the non-essential things in our lives, in our businesses, in our state and federal government. We're getting back to essentials. We're getting back to those things that make sense. And I think we're being a lot harder on expenditures. I was just watching the report on the Christmas shopping, and people are using a lot more debit cards than they're using credit cards. People are saying, this is a set amount of money that I have, I'm not going to spend any more than that. I mean, that is a kind of a sea change. People are talking about putting down payments now for automobiles and homes, where that wasn't before. It was done, you know, just sign here on the bottom line. So I think we as a society are getting back to where we need to be in getting to the core and to the essentials. And I think for us in government, that's what we've been trying to sort of strip away, is that we can't do everything for everybody, but we need to be strategic about it. We need to form partnerships and alliances and work out there together.
Well, let me ask you a question about that. I guess follow up on that then. Yeah, families are having to do what they can, tightening the belt, being more prudent about how they use their credit and use their dollars. The state is having to do that as well, obviously. And clearly, you as governor have had 8 years of just lots of fun carving up those budgets and working out the compromises. Some would say, though, that as we move into this next budget season, which may be $1 billion deficit, you'll tell us more about that, I think. But some are saying that all the easy cuts and the easy fixes have already been done. What will happen now? And can you point to one? Is there one program that we should just cut that you would recommend, saying, yes, we can cut or should cut that one?
Well, first of all, there aren't any easy cuts, and there never have been easy cuts, because where somebody thinks something is vitally important and there's an advocacy group behind it, they'll think it's the end of the world when you go about trying to cut it or reorganize it or consolidate it or what have you. But the reality is that the needs aren't going away. So the needs are mostly 80% of it's in health care and education. And that's where most of the needs are. And you can't raise taxes, because when I became governor, it was one of the highest tax burden states in the country, and I was committed not to raise taxes but to reduce our burden. We've gone from #1 to about 16 or 17th. You've got to keep the pressure on so we're at the national averages. So tax burden is not one of the equations that businesses in Maine or those thinking of Maine will put in the way of saying, you know, we can't go there. Then at the same time, when you look at your structures, what we have in Maine is what Governor King used to talk about. You have an administration for every 1,500 people. Brookings went through the same report. All of the analysis that's gone on, we have too much administration at the local level, at the school administrative level, at the county level, at the state level.
So as people are pointing at the state government saying, that's where the cut should be, that's where the fat is, you're saying we got to look at the whole government system?
Because frankly, we got a flattened government, so they're serving the same number of people, but they're doing it working together better. You know, it reminds me when I was in the restaurant business and I was in the kitchen with my dad, and I go out front and come back into the kitchen, he'd always say, don't come back empty-handed. And I think more government has to think about doing things more in a united way, so the county government is part of the solution. They either step up to the plate, or if they don't, then they finally do away with county government.
Okay, good. We're going to take a quick break right there. We're going to come back, and when we come back, I'm going to jump right into the #1 most important cost driver at the business level, and that's healthcare issues. So we'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back to continue our discussion with Governor John Baldacci.
Mainebiz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.